Before the white man ever set foot on Yoruba soil, Oyo had already started fighting itself. Long before foreign flags and treaties, there was Oyo, a name that made neighboring towns bow their heads. To say you were from Oyo was to say you belonged to power. Old Oyo, Oyo Ile, was not just a city, it was the command center of a whole world. From its palace, the Alaafin sent orders that traveled across forests, rivers, and open savanna. Tribute arrived regularly. Disobedience was rare. People believed Oyo was protected by the gods, but the gods do not protect pride forever. Oyo's strength was not only in its warriors, but in its system. The Alaafin ruled, but he was not a tyrant. The Oyo Messi, powerful chiefs, advised him and checked his excesses. The Bashoron, head of the Oyo Messi, held both political and ritual authority. And when words failed, the Eso Ikoyi, elite cavalry warriors, enforced the will of the empire. Each group feared the others just enough to behave. That balance kept Oyo strong for generations until ambition began to outweigh duty. Among the Eso Ikoyi was a young cavalryman named Aderemi. He was not born into fame. He did not shout in council gatherings. He did not drink himself into confidence like some warriors did. What set Aderemi apart was something quieter. He paid attention. At first, the changes were small. Orders that once came quickly now arrived late. Commands that used to be clear now came with conditions. Messengers returned not with answers, but with excuses. Aderemi noticed that campaigns were delayed, not because of weather or enemies, but because the chiefs could not agree. When warriors gathered at night, the talk was no longer about battle strategies. It was about politics. Who controls the Alaafin now? Which chief is plotting against which? Who benefits if this war fails? That was when Aderemi knew something was wrong. Inside the palace, the Bashoron had grown powerful, too powerful. The Alaafin still wore the crown, but the crown no longer decided everything. Decisions were being shaped behind closed doors, not for the survival of Oyo, but for who would control it next. Power was no longer about protecting the empire, it was about owning it. During night watch, Aderemi heard whispers meant to stay in darkness. Provinces had begun delaying tribute, not openly refusing, but testing boundaries. Some generals were ignoring summons, claiming distance or illness, and always the same name returned again and again: Ilorin. Ilorin was once Oyo's pride, a military outpost guarding the northern frontier. It was meant to be loyal, disciplined, and obedient. But something had changed. Ilorin no longer spoke like a servant, it spoke like a partner. Its commander, Afonja, had grown impatient with palace politics. To strengthen his position, he welcomed Fulani warriors and scholars into his camp. At first, Oyo saw this as strategy. Aderemi did not. He saw that Ilorin's loyalty was shifting, not suddenly but steadily. And loyalty, once cracked, never heals the same way. When Ilorin delayed tribute and questioned orders, Oyo finally sent a force to remind them who ruled the empire. Aderemi ruled with the cavalry. What he found shocked him. Ilorin's warriors were organized, disciplined, confident. They did not behave like men expecting punishment. They behaved like men prepared for independence. Fulani fighters stood beside them, not as guests, but as allies. Their belief gave them courage that was difficult to shake. The clash was brief. Oyo withdrew. For the first time in his life, Aderemi saw Oyo retreat. He returned to the capital urgently, carrying a message heavier than any spear. Ilorin is no longer ours, he warned. If we do not act now, it will become a doorway for greater danger. But Aderemi was young, and young voices are easy to silence. Unknown to him, decisions had already been made. Some members of the Oyo Messi believed the Alaafin was weak. Others believed Ilorin's rebellion could be useful, a tool to weaken rivals and reorganize power within the palace. So they chose silence. They allowed Ilorin to drift away, thinking they could control the outcome later. But fire does not wait for permission to spread. Ilorin did not just break away. It became the gateway through which northern forces pushed deeper south. What was once internal politics became external invasion. Oyo lost control of its own borders. Once Ilorin escaped punishment, other provinces grew bold. Tribute stopped, trade routes collapsed. Oyo's warriors were forced to fight on many fronts at once. From the north came disciplined forces driven by faith and unity. Oyo still had brave warriors, but bravery without coordination is wasteful. Inside the capital, the chiefs turned on one another. Accusations flew. Ritual laws were invoked. The Alaafin was blamed for failures he no longer had the power to prevent. The system that once protected Oyo now strangled it. When enemies finally reached Old Oyo itself, there was no glorious final stand. There was confusion, there was fear, there was fire. The palace was abandoned, shrines were destroyed, families fled in every direction. Aderemi escaped with refugees, turning back only once to see smoke swallow the city that raised him. Old Oyo, the empire that ruled generations, was gone. But Oyo's fall did not bring peace, it brought chaos. Survivors gathered and formed new warrior cities like Ibadan. Old alliances collapsed, new wars followed. Long before the British arrived, Yoruba land had already been reshaped by Yoruba hands. Years later, as an old man, Aderemi would say, Oyo was not defeated by strangers. It was defeated when truth became dangerous to speak.
If this story moved you, subscribe to Mythic Africa Studios and journey with us into the heart of African legends.